Hey everybody, it is Harlan Kilstein here, and I would want to make sure that everybody hears me. So if you can hear me, would you please go over to the right-hand side of your screen, and there's a question box, and would you type in, I hear you? Okay, we're getting some I hear yous there. That's great. Hi Linda, and hi Connie. Hi, Bruce, Jim, Barbara. Okay. Um, welcome everybody. Welcome everybody. Okay, so we're given just a couple of minutes. I don't usually wait a lot, but I do want to find out here how many people. Hi, Leah. How many people here are have been doing the ketosis we'll call it the ketosis diet for a while. Okay, how many people have been doing it for a while? Okay, okay. Since January, 2 weeks. I'm totally new. Me, 3 weeks. Okay. 2 years. Wow. Okay, great. Who else? Looks like we've got a lot of new people saying new. Okay. Hi, Yehuda. I'm here to learn. 25 days, a month. On my third week, good for you. New, only 2 weeks. On and off for 2 weeks. Totally new. That's great. If you're new, you are so in the right place. You are so in the right place. We have planned for you a really wonderful, wonderful webinar. And so we're going to be taking a lot of your questions during the webinar. And the way you type in your questions is you go over to the question box and you type it in. And either Kim or I will see it. Kim, you can see it on your right-hand side. You might have to expand it so that you can see the questions coming in, but it's over there on your right-hand side, and you should be able to see it. Now, we will be answering your questions. We want to cover all of the questions that you have, and you will have questions. But I have one favor. Something weird sometimes happens on a webinar, and people kind of like don't pay attention, but they think they're paying attention, and they hear stuff in the background. And very often, they will ask the exact question that we just answered. Okay? Are we supposed to be seeing you? If you did, Leslie, I'd have to arrest you for trespassing, because no, you will see some slides shortly, but no, you won't see me. You'll see pictures of me, and that will have to do. Well, at least one person likes my sense of humor. Okay, so I would, we would turn the video on, but then, between me and Kim, you'd all fall in love with Kim. Nobody would want to listen to me, and that would be it. I would have nothing to do for the rest of the evening. So, okay. Okay, for those of you who have been doing ketosis either for a while or just a couple of weeks, type in how much you've lost. If anything. Leslie is down 12 pounds. Margaret, 63 pounds. Good for you. Karen, 6 pounds. Michelle, 12 pounds. Christina, 10. Craig, hey, welcome, Craig. 13 pounds. Lynn, 9 pounds in a week. James, 16 pounds. Sylvia, 8. Hi, Sylvia. Sylvia and I know each other for many, 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 many years. Tony says 10 pounds. My husband, 25. Okay, Amy says once lost over 100 pounds. Well, let's get that back. Okay. I'm here to learn about it, haven't gotten started yet, says Scott. Okay, well, you are in the right place. Now, I invite you to get settled. In order for, we have a massive amount of information for you. You probably want to have something to write things down. We are recording this. You will all be able to get the recording. And this is going to be awesome sauce. So without any further ado, are you guys ready to start? Type in yes if you're ready. You can type in Calgon, take me away, but we'll start with yes. It's easier and faster. Okay, so here we go. We're going to show our screen. And now you should see my screen. Just verifying, do you see losing weight with keto? Okay, well, there we go. So here are your hosts. On the left, the lovely Miss Kim. And that's me on the right. Hey, Kim, say hi to everybody.
Hey, everybody. Nice to be here.
Okay. And Kim and I have known each other now for a bunch. How many years do we know one another, Kim?
It's at least 6, but maybe 8.
Okay, it could be. I'm old and senile and don't remember things, but I do remember Kim. And we've been friends and we've been in touch on and off on different projects. And then we met each other in the world of keto. And I started the group and invited Kim to join me. And here we go. So everybody say hi to Kim and we're going to get started. Now, let's get ready because I'm going to show you my before picture. Okay? Ready for my before picture? Here we go. There I am. I am 9 months pregnant in that picture. I am 9 months pregnant in that picture. And you see that I am slightly overweight and starting to do yoga. When I started to do yoga, I was badly out of shape, couldn't move, couldn't get my arms up, etc. And this was the beginning of my weight loss journey. I started doing intense yoga. Ultimately, I was doing yoga 2 times a day for a total of 3 hours a day of sweating intense yoga. Once I started to get my movement into my body. Plus, I was weightlifting 3 times a week. Through exercise, through watching what I ate and heavy-duty lifting, I lost 50 pounds in a year. I was on top of the world. I was weighing 200 pounds. People were mistaking me for my son. I had gone from wearing size gigantic to wearing 34s and on occasions size 33. People told me that I should stop wearing skinny jeans because I wasn't a girl. And I felt terrific. Then the problem struck and I had a yoga injury. And all of a sudden, I couldn't exercise. And my weight started going up. Let me tell you, the weight came back on much faster than the weight went off. And pretty soon from 200, I was at 220 and said, oh, I can lose that. 230, 240. And more and more and more, the weight came back on. And I was hurt and I was frustrated and I couldn't do yoga anymore and hurt myself exercising even further. And took a break from losing weight. The weight came on. And then I got divorced and the weight piled on. And one day I got up and looked at myself and said, I have to do something. And I decided for the first time to go to a doctor. And I went to a doctor and he looked at all of my numbers and looked at all of my blood work and he said, I hate to tell you, but you have metabolic syndrome. Metabolic syndrome? I looked at him with a puzzled face. And I said, what's that? He goes, it's syndrome X. Well, that didn't help much. I didn't know what Syndrome X was. And he said, let me explain it to you simply. It is impossible for you to lose weight. Your hormones have completely shut down. You are oversensitive to certain foods, and weight loss for you is going to be a struggle, and I don't know if you're going to make it. And I went back and I started studying Syndrome X and metabolic syndrome and discovered that I had the term called pre-diabetic. You see, following the standard American diet had basically exhausted my ability to produce correct amounts of insulin, and I was unable to lose weight. I had my hormones checked, and man, they were completely out of whack. So I went on a low carb diet and I started working out again. I worked out with a trainer 6 days a week intensely, and I ate low carbs, and my weight went up. And I discussed ketosis with one of my doctors, and he said, oh, absolutely not. Do not do ketosis. It's bad. It's dangerous. You really should not do ketosis. Okay, I said, but being frustrated and angry, I went to another doctor, and he said, oh, you can lose weight, but remember, ha ha ha, you don't bake a turkey over just an hour. It's going to take a long time for you to lose that weight. I said, what about ketosis? He said, I don't think it's safe. So when 2 doctors said, don't do ketosis, I decided to do it anyway. And within 4 weeks, I was down 23 pounds. My energy was up. I had doubled the amount of weight I was lifting. And best of all, I wasn't hungry at all. I feel like a new person. I am enjoying the ride. I never struggle. I am never tempted. I've worked with Kim, and she has seen my food logs from day to day, and she could tell you there is not one cheat day in there because I'm determined and I'm so full on ketosis that most days I don't eat 3 meals a day. Today I had lunch, and it's 8:45 where I am. I haven't eaten dinner yet. I probably won't have dinner. Maybe I'll have some more water before I go to bed. But I'm not trying not to eat. I'm just not hungry. So my story is that ketosis worked when everything else failed. Now, I've got a long way to go. I'm on the journey. But here's the point you're going to hear from me. I suspect you're going to hear from Kim, and that is ketosis is right. If you're going to write something down, write this down. Ketosis is not a diet, it's a way of life. And if you're looking for a diet that you can go on, lose weight, and then go off, you're going to be back where you started, but it's going to damage your health. But if you want to do something where you're going to be slimmer and healthier and more energetic for the rest of your life, then stick around because you're going to learn about ketosis from us, and we're going to tell you everything you need to know. Let's go over and hear Kim's story.
Okay, so there's a picture of me on the screen with my best friend at her wedding. And I have to say that at that wedding, I was being her wedding coordinator, as a best friend will do when your wedding coordinator gets the flu. And so I was running around, running. And literally by the end of the night, I couldn't stand up. I was so heavy, and my feet, I had plantar fasciitis in both feet. I was just in a lot of pain. And the story of my highest weight came in my probably in my early 30s, late 20s, when I'd had a lifetime of being overweight. I was just a tall kid, but not heavy, but had a real fixation with food that just got worse in my mid elementary school years. And by 9, I looked like an adult. I was tall, but I was also heavy. And I was one of those kids that would get asked a lot if I was pregnant, apparently thinking I was a teen pregnancy issue. And it was just a big belly. I was one of those belly kids. But what I came to find out over the years is it was a sign that I was already becoming insulin resistant before I was 10 years old. And as Harlan alluded to, Syndrome X, they've called it a lot of things over the years, but they're all really the same thing. It's an insulin problem. And it's a kind of a continuum that starts with mild insulin resistant and ends up with horrible diabetes. So there are stops along the way, but my story was one where I started out pretty unhappy with my body as a teenager, and eventually just kind of gave up. I decided, I'm awesome, and I'll just be awesome in spite of my weight. And I did a pretty good job. Harlan met me in my heavy awesome phase. But I was never, I just thought one day, like, I was entering my late 30s, and all of a sudden I became sort of more aware of my mortality. I became aware that my body was really hard to move around. I was physically uncomfortable. I got on an airplane and was like almost unable to buckle the seatbelt at one point, and I was freaking out because I just didn't want to be that person anymore, because inside I just didn't feel like what I looked like on the outside. And the years were passing, and I knew it was only going to get harder and harder. And so I decided to do something about it. And I did a lot of research, and I got on a low carb diet, and I did lose a bunch of weight, and it was awful. I hated my restrictive low carb diet because I was white knuckling it every day. And I ended up putting a lot of the weight back on. And I said, there's just got to be a way to make this livable. And I found out about the ketogenic diet. And I was like, well, it seems like it's worth a try. And I believed in what I researched about it. I believed the people that were telling me about it. And so I jumped in with both feet and just went for it. And it took me about a few weeks to figure out what I was doing, because initially I was listening to a lot of very handsome, large, muscular men telling me what to do, which was pleasant in the exchange, but was not accurate for a approaching middle-aged, chunky, not athletic woman. And so it took me a while to dial it in, which is definitely part of what I help people with in the world, because I don't want people to go through kind of the guessing that I went through. And then within a few weeks, it was like I had entered a different world. I can't remember. I mean, I'm sure like when I was 4, I wasn't obsessed with food, maybe. But my parents did have to hide cookies. I can't remember a time when I haven't been obsessed, thinking obsessively, thinking about food. What am I going to eat next? How can I get access to this? Feeling ashamed of my food and wanting it anyway, hiding food. Like, my life was revolved mostly around carbohydrates, around sweets, around things that I like had guilt around. And it was just an endless sort of cycle of just like, there was just a lot of depression. And within a few weeks of being keto, it just lifted that constant hunger, craving. I mean, if I didn't lose a pound, don't get me wrong, I'm happy to lose some, but if I didn't lose a pound keto, I would have been like, this is it, I'm doing it. Because just gosh, how much brain I got back and how much attention I got back and how much ability to connect to people when you're like having a conversation with somebody and you're present in the conversation rather than like obsessing about when you can get out of a conversation and eat something. And so I've been doing keto, well, specifically for about a year now, and doing keto coaching because I love this so much. That's my story.
That's your story? Okay. Now, as we go through it, we're going to look at your coming in, and we are going to deal with them. The questions are already coming in, and I think we're going to pick up some of the questions in just a couple of moments. So you can type them in, and we'll look at them and go back and try and put them in the right place. We promise we'll try and answer all of them, and we're going to try and do it. But obviously, pay attention because we just won't have time to answer questions more than one time. Okay, so what is the ketosis diet? Now, all of us grew up, for the most part, under the guidelines of the brilliant Department of Agriculture. And the Department of Agriculture answered to the various industries, and the various industries decided that what we should do is base everything we had on grains. Grains were healthy. And a grain in the form of like cereals, breakfast cereals, you know. How many people here started breakfast every day with cereal? Okay? How many people started their breakfast every day with cereal? Okay? People are typing, yep, that was me, every day. And we were told that cereal and milk for breakfast were really healthy. And we were told that, you know, things we should have sparing were eggs, because eggs were filled with cholesterol. We should have fats even less than eggs. People stopped using butter because butter was evil, and we had healthy GMO-filled margarine because that was good for us. We were told to avoid fatty foods. Fat became the enemy. And by the way, it was recently exposed to us. There was a New York Times article that it turned out that the people who were writing the articles that fat was the real danger were being paid by the sugar industry. Some professors at Harvard got money from the sugar industry, and they decided that the best enemy was fat. And so everybody grew up believing that fat was the enemy, when the real enemy was the sugar and the grains. So this little chart shows you that the things that are out on the keto diet are those things that make our insulin system crazy. Bread, the number of grams of carbs in it is off the charts. Pasta, obviously sugar. And this means sugar in all kinds. Like, you know, I went into a restaurant the other day with some friends and they were having dessert. And I said, just bring me a coffee. And they had some almond milk. And he said, would you like some date sugar? Because it was a healthy restaurant. But date sugar is no better than other sugar. Honey is no better. When it comes to insulin and promoting insulin resistance, sugar is sugar is sugar. Milk is extremely high in sugar. Corn, it basically turns to sugar before you even swallow it. Same thing with beans and white rice. There's no difference really between eating white rice, and to your body, there's no difference between eating rice, even brown rice, and your body, and just eating sugar. So these are the things that you want to rule out. And then down at the bottom with the lowest amounts of carbs are your meats and your fishes. The next level are eggs and dairy and your fats. And then moving more sparingly uh, are your vegetables. Some of the vegetables do have grams of carbs in them, so you want to watch them. And then nuts are also have some carbs. If you're in our group, you're learning about the best nuts to have. And then for desserts, on occasion, you can have some strawberries, you can have some blueberries, or the one with the lowest carb because it has the most fiber are blackberries. Now, what makes people fat are carbs and promoting that insulin resistance. Years ago, Dr. Atkins came along and started the Atkins diet. And he told people to cut out the carbs and cut out the sugar. And a lot of people lost weight on Atkins, but he made one mistake. Kim, do you know what his mistake was?
Well, I'm going to guess it starts with the letter P.
It starts with the letter P. Why don't you tell people about the P mistake?
So, one of the things that we've found about ketosis is it's not only a matter of restricting your carbohydrates, it's a matter of keeping your protein in a moderate range. So, a lot of people, when they do keto, they end up thinking it's a high protein diet. But the reality is it is a moderate protein diet.
That's probably one of the biggest, we're going to get to myths about keto, but that's probably one of the biggest myths about keto is that it's a high protein diet and that you can have as much protein as you want.
Right.
And it's not the case.
Yeah, it's not the case at all. You can have a fair amount of protein. You can have plenty of protein, but it's not unlimited protein.
Okay. Now, so the question most people here on the call who are beginners want to know, well, how do you get into ketosis? How do I get into keto? And you get into keto, we're going to go into detail in a minute, but you get into keto by, first of all, the first step is to exclude those things that you see on the bottom of the pyramid. Those become no foods. Now, if you have to move to moderate some of those foods before giving them up entirely, hey, I understand. But the presence of those foods will very, very likely keep you out of ketosis. So if you say, as we had someone in the group say, I will do all of this, but I'm going to have my cereal for breakfast every morning. Well, basically, having cereal for breakfast every morning is going to prevent you from being in keto the rest of the day. There isn't a chance that having a bowl of cereal, or in his case, a bowl of granola, you are going to be so far in excess of the grams of carbs that are needed to keep you in ketosis that you're basically doing nothing. So when you start doing this and you start eating like this and you start eating a huge percent of your daily diet is coming from fat, your body stops getting its energy from carbs. Carbs are the easiest thing for your body to burn. So when you put carbs into your body uses them for fuel, but it's also storing them as fat. So the first thing that your body wants to do is use carbs, and it doesn't process them well and stores them as fat. If you cut out carbs and you give your body too much protein, your body will convert the protein into sugar and work off that. But if you give your body moderate protein, minimal carbs, and a high percent of fat, your body starts burning fat. How long does it take to get into that? I wish there was an answer to tell you. For some people, it takes a couple of days. For some people, it takes a week. For some people, it could, depending on their own body chemistry, it could take from 3 to as much as 7 weeks for you to be efficiently in ketosis. This is not a one size fits all because all of us have our body chemistry different. Let me look at a couple of questions that came in. Okay, Barbara says, what about heart patients? My husband's doctor wants him on low fat, low cholesterol. You know, when I went to my cardiologist, I didn't know this, but he had a nutritionist in the office, and she wanted me to go on a liquid diet plan. And I read the ingredients, and it was basically protein and sugar. And I looked at her and said, you must be kidding. Between the protein, the sugar, the milk powder that was in there that you added with water, and this was going to continue the problem. And in theory, the only way I was going to lose weight was by, having maybe 500 calories a day. She wanted me to buy a special peanut butter powder that you mixed with water so I wouldn't have any fat in the diet. Now, I can tell you that since I started keto, I've been testing my cholesterol regularly, and my doctors are now stunned at how my cholesterol has gone down rapidly, and they're now all taking credit for my keto success, even though they told me not to do it. So as far as your husband's doctor wants him on low fat, low cholesterol, keto is generally known to significantly reduce cholesterol. And unfortunately, and I say this because my brother is a doctor who is also diabetic, most doctors know next to nothing about nutrition. My cardiologist says to me flat out that through medical school, he did not take a single course in nutrition. They may be up to date. My cardiologist is incredibly up to date on cardiology. But when it comes to nutrition, everybody on this call probably knows more than he does. Okay, next question. What is the main difference between low carb and ketogenic? Paul, that is the question of the day, and I'm glad you asked that because Kim said, Harlan, make sure to point this out. So I'm glad you reminded me. In low carb, you eat low carbs, but you don't necessarily restrict them as much as you do in keto. And secondly, you do not eat the high fats. High fats are the symbol and signal of the ketosis diet. Now, I did low carb for 2 years fairly diligently, and my weight only went up. Low carb without the keto didn't do a thing for me. Amy says, with meat so high in protein, I don't understand how to keep protein moderate. We're going to show you how to do that. It's a good question. I'm losing weight quicker than ever before. Does this mean I'm in ketosis? Quite possibly, but we're going to talk later on about how you can really know. When you say moderate protein, yeah, we're going to get to that in just a second. How do you know you're in ketosis? We're going to get to that shortly. How do you know? Okay, same thing. Don't all meats, eggs, cheese contain protein? Yes. How can we eat these in moderation? We're going to show you that next. Okay. What devices are you using to measure? We're going to show you that shortly. I wasted years eating too much protein and low carbs, says my friend Craig. So, other people are experiencing this. Now, when you start to go into keto, you may experience something in the early days. Not everybody does. And it's called the keto flu. And Kim is going to say a couple of words about the keto flu.
Sure. The keto flu is kind of what everybody calls it, but I prefer to call it by what it actually is, and that is carb withdrawal. So the issue that happens is when you first start to eat a ketogenic diet, sometimes by day 2, your body is very confused because it is used to you supplying it with a steady stream of glucose from your food, because glucose is super easy, fast energy. But as we've discussed, in the presence of glucose, your body, or excess glucose, your body cannot get into a state of ketosis. So what happens right away is your body starts to make a shift. And one of those shifts is that your body starts to dump out your glycogen stores because it can only hold it for so long. So when you are eating carbs on a regular basis, your body, this is the non-scientific explanation, is like a glucose sponge. You are retaining water, salt, and a bunch of different electrolytes like that you're just soaking in them all the time. When you take the plug out on the glucose, those things get flushed out. You'll actually find you urinate more often initially as well, because your body doesn't want to be full of salt and glucose. So you flush those stores out. And generally this is accompanied by a lovely drop in weight because you're not bloated anymore. And my face got so much more attractive when I got rid of a lot of bloat that I was storing. But at the same time, because your body is no longer a sponge, you're not retaining salt and electrolytes in such a constant, steady stream. So you have to replenish those things. So the easy cure for the keto flu or carb withdrawal is to intake more salt. It's a pretty simple solution. I can go into more detail in the future, but that's really, and it can feel fluey. You might feel like the symptoms tend to be like a fluey feeling, an achy feeling. It's really just an electrolyte imbalance because your body isn't used to being efficient with those things. This is related to a bigger concept, which is why people with keto who are in ketosis often stop having blood pressure problems, which is awesome. But the keto flu, it's super short-lived, and 2, it can be combated. Those are my main keto flu points.
Okay, now, what are some of the initial problems people have when they go into ketosis aside from the flu?
I think one of the things that happens, and this is very emotional, is that we are a society of carb addicts. So there's just a huge life change. Even when you come from what you thought was a low carb or lowish carb diet to then go to ketosis, it's a big shift. And you're fighting a lot of voices in your head telling you how you're supposed to eat that got trained in during your nutrition class in elementary school. And so you have to really stick to what you know and what you're learning about ketosis. So some of the things people kind of mess up a little bit on when they first start doing keto is 1, they eat too much protein. 2, they don't eat enough fat. 3, they let carbs stay a little too high. And all of those things leave you kind of in a half in, half out state that's just super uncomfortable. So once you go all in and are really following a truly ketogenic diet, it tends to be that your hunger and your satiety peak and valley really strangely. You haven't yet kind of gotten your body hasn't quite adapted yet. And so like my first week of keto, I was like an eating machine and I ate a lot and I still lost a ton of weight. And And then the next week I wasn't hungry at all. And like I had to be okay with the fact that my body was really relearning how to have a relationship with food that was completely different than I'd ever had before. So the main problems are sort of the mental adjustment, the physical adjustment of being up and down with hunger, and then any electrolyte withdrawal, aka keto flu. Those are the main ones.
Okay. Let's get into the questions that you guys have been asking. And this is about tracking. Kim, we're talking about tracking. This happens to be my tracking for the day. Feel free to put any kind of comments or insults on my tracking. But I took a picture of that just before we got started.
Awesome. Do you want me to just launch into how you track?
Yeah, let's launch into how you track, what macros are, and how you track macros and how much fat, how much carbs, and how much protein, and the difference between carbs and net carbs. And I think that if we get through that, we will have some serious experts ready to start keto.
It's exciting. Okay, so I'm going to start with what the heck are macros? Because everyone talks about macros. What's a macro? Well, macro is short for macronutrient. So there are macronutrients and micronutrients. A micronutrient is a vitamin. A macronutrient is a block of nutritional measure. So you've got essentially 3 macronutrients. All food, excluding alcohol, is built of 1 or 2 or 3 parts. And those parts are carbohydrate, aka carbs, protein, and fat. Those are the 3 macros. So every food is made of those macros. So you might take something like olive oil. Olive oil is pretty much pure fat. So 100% of the macros in olive oil are fat. An egg is part fat and part protein and a teeny bit of carbs. It's got a bunch of different things in there. So if you take a single egg, it's about 65% fat, 45% protein, and like less than 1% of carbs. So then you take something like broccoli, and broccoli actually has a teeny weeny bit of fat, but like almost infinitesimal. And it's got a bit of protein, several grams of protein in broccoli. But most of it, the vast majority of it, is carbohydrates. So every item of food that you can find is built up of these building blocks, these macros. And so the key to ketosis is to know the macros of your food, to know what the building blocks in each item are. Now, because there are ranges that you need to stay within in each macro for optimal ketosis. I'm going to stop here and say that I'm going to break down something about carbs that is a hotly debated topic in the keto world, which is that some people do something which is count net carbs, and some people do something count total carbs. Now, total carbs is all of the carbs in a food. Net carbs is all of the carbs in a food minus the fiber. I won't go into sugar alcohols because they're another topic, but let's just talk purely about like broccoli or spinach or just like a vegetable. So you have something like broccoli, and the total carbs on that broccoli amount that you have are 6 grams total carbs. Well, part of broccoli is fiber. A good part of any vegetable is fiber, and it's close to half fiber. So you've got a net carb of 3, whereas you have a total carb of 6. Now, some people count net carbs. Why does this matter? It's a good question. In ketosis, we say you want to keep your carbs under 20 grams to be safe if you're, not an athlete. So some people will say, well, I keep my net carbs under 20 grams. And other people say, well, I keep my total carbs under 20 grams. And you're like, this is confusing. Which one do I do? And unfortunately, the answer is it depends. some of us are more insulin sensitive and some of us are more insulin resistant. It tends to be that it's a person by person difference about whether they do better on net carbs or total carbs. And that's when testing will come into play. The reason that some people do net carbs is because insoluble fiber does not have the same effect on blood sugar as does starch or sugar or other parts of the carbohydrate. So the theory is that you can subtract the fiber and call it net because you're essentially not getting any negative blood sugar effect from the fiber that's within a food. So that's the difference between net carbs and total carbs. And I count total carbs and Harlan counts net carbs. So you've got across the board, you know, the way that different people do things. And that's where testing really comes into play.
Now, if you take a look at the screen in front of you, we're going to talk about where this came from in a second, but this is set up to look at what you eat on a daily basis. And my goals here are under 20 net carbs a day, but you've seen here, which this is include everything I've had. And you see my calories that I've had. I exercised this morning, and you see I've got 430 extra calories from exercise today. I've eaten 1,362. I still have 1,200 left, which I'm probably not going to consume. Under net carbs, I've had 3 net carbs. 2 of them came from a chocolate bar that is absolutely sinful and delicious. And the other one, I believe, is a mistake because it said it came from salmon. I had 4 ounces of salmon, and it said there was 1 carb, so I'm not going to argue with it. But even so, whether net carbs or total carbs, if I accepted all of the carbs, I'm still under 20 carbs a day on totals. So the program that I am using, which is an app that you should get, is called MyFitnessPal. And I'm going to write that in the chat box where you can get it. It is a free app, but you can also sign up, and they make it a little more enhanced with tracking for a certain fee a month. I believe I pay that extra fee. I think it's like $9 a month. And MyFitnessPal is a pretty standard in the industry. You will see it abbreviated in keto groups as MFP because it's so universal. Now we'll write this up because it's important, but there are certain things. If you're using the Chrome browser, there are certain scripts that you can do so that it will track net carbs versus total carbs. So if you don't want to track the difference, you just want to do total carbs, then it'll work great. Otherwise, there's a script that takes about 1.5 seconds to install, and then it will track net carbs for you. How do you know whether you should be doing net carbs like Harlan or total carbs like Kim? Your body will tell you. If you want to do net carbs and you're not losing weight, then switch over to total carbs instantly and see what difference it makes. But I can tell you without fear of doubt, when you hear that someone is not losing weight on keto, the first question that either Kim or I will ask are you tracking? Are you paying attention to what you're eating? Because if you're not paying attention to what you're eating, it is extremely likely that you are setting yourself up for failure, and that you are just not aware of what you are consuming. Listen, if you're on this call, my guess is, and it's a fair guess, that you have a couple of pounds to lose. And the reason that you have a couple of pounds to lose, some people have a lot of pounds to lose. No shame in that. Some people have a few pounds to lose. No one's any better. But the reason that we get this way is that eating is pretty much an unconscious activity. That's the way it's always been. And by eating unconsciously, we do not pay attention to what we eat. Most people grew up and their parents made them members of the Clean Plate Club. You have to finish what's on your plate. It wasn't until keto came along that I ever experienced the sensation of knowing when I was full. And go,
Yes.
You too?
Yeah, I'd never known this feeling before.
Everybody always said, eat until you're full. But I was never full. And now in keto, like, it's 9 o'clock at 9:20. I didn't have dinner. I'm not going to have dinner. I don't care to have dinner. And I'm not hungry.
Yeah, it's nutty. It's awesome. I, for years was like, I want to eat intuitively because it was a big movement, the intuitive eating movement. And I was like, my inner voice is telling me to have another cookie. I can't, like, there's no stop.
My inner voice told me to have 2.
Right. Well, the bag was nearby. So yeah, but now I'm like, I like sometimes put something in my mouth and I almost want to spit it out because I was like, I am not hungry, and that I just don't eat it. I'm just like, meh, I don't want it. Not hungry.
Okay. Most important thing now is, how do they set up macros? What should people be tracking? Everybody get your pen out. This is probably the most important part of what you're going to get today. How many carbs, how much protein, and how much fat should people shoot for?
Okay, this is fairly simple. So I set everybody to start at 20 grams of carbs. You can do net carbs if you want to do. It is still a great way to go. And what happened is I started on net. I wasn't getting the results I wanted. I did some testing. We'll talk about testing later. I realized I wasn't quite where I wanted to be ketosis wise, and I adjusted it. But to start, go ahead with net. If net seems complicated because you have to do a little math, and but 20 grams of carbs, no more. You can do less. It's not a requirement to go up to 20. And then protein. So you want, essentially, I'm going to give you a calculation right now. And you don't have to do the calculation yet. You can save it. But the calculation is basically that you want to do about 1 to 1.5 grams of protein per kilogram of lean body mass. And you're like, geez, Kim, that's a lot of math because we don't use kilograms in the United States. But that's the general recommendation. I do have a shortcut for you, which is that men, if you are, and this is from a doctor named Adam Nally, by the way, that I took this calculation. Men, if you are 5 feet tall, you would eat 50 grams of protein. And this is for non-athletic people, by the way, right now. And then add 2.3 grams of protein for every inch you are over 5 feet. Ladies, you're going to start with 45.5 grams of protein and add 2.3 grams per inch over 5 feet. So that's just the basic. I am 5'9", and I end up with about 66 grams of protein a day. If you are athletic, there's a multiplier. So you would, for men, you'd multiply that number you came up with by 1.6, women 1.4. And athletic is, I characterize it as this. Are you in an active muscle growth phase? Are you trying to put muscle on your body and doing things that would do that, like lifting weights on a regular basis every week? Are you breaking a sweat for an hour a day? Like those are the markers of a very athletic person. And not the way I used to break a sweat by walking up the stairs, but actually exercising. So those are your protein goals. So we know your carb goals, we know your protein goals. And then for your fat, you're eating fat to satiety. But the ketogenic diet has between 65 and 85% of your calories coming from fat, which means that if your grams of fat are less than your grams of protein, you are not eating enough fat. So if you ate 60 grams of protein for the day is your requirement, if your fat is below 60 grams, you're not in a ketogenic ratio, but you can then go up from there. And that going up from there is based on how hungry you are. Harlan, do you have anything you want to add?
No, I think this is pretty accurate. The only thing that I'm going to say is doing this in your head is next to impossible. And that's why I think that MyFitnessPal makes this simple. Let me pause and look at questions. I'll read them. Kim, you answer them. Is this safe for children?
Yes, it is. So keto is safe for any age person. It is a healthy diet. You do with kids, want to be really careful that they're getting lots of leafy greens, vitamins, minerals, all that kind of stuff. But the other thing that I will tell you is the carb limit for children should be a little higher. Children get into ketosis a lot easier than adults do. They have a lot more insulin sensitivity. So with a kid, their carb limit is much closer to 50 than it is to our 20 as adults.
Okay.
But no children need processed carbohydrates. No.
How do you eat high-fat foods? And we showed them, and where are they? We showed them in the last slide, where high-fat foods include some cheeses are high-fat, eggs have fat. There are meats that are high-fat, oils high-fat, butter is high-fat. One of the things that I do to make things easy for myself, and there's a discussion on it almost every single day in our group, is called bulletproof coffee, where it's coffee in the morning with, I put in 2 tablespoons of butter and 2 tablespoons of what's called brain oil or MCT oil, and I whip it in my blender and I drink it. And it really gives me a good start. So when I'm ready to work out in the morning, I've pretty much had my cup of bulletproof coffee. And at that point, I have had 100, my macro in the morning is 100% fat. It is 100% fat and goes down from there. So you see now at the end of the day, I have had 85, 86% of my day has been fat. So when I test, and we'll talk about that in a little bit for ketosis, more often than not, I am seriously in ketosis. Next question. How do you get fiber on the keto diet?
Quite honestly, you don't need that much fiber. So there's sort of this fiber myth out there that you need a lot of fiber. In part, you need a lot of fiber when you eat the SAD diet because it's really hard on your digestion, and you need that fiber to push things through your digestive tract. It causes a lot of inflammation. Some natural fiber to get is totally fine and healthy, but you really don't need to worry about like fiber recommendations. The thing that keeps your digestion good on keto is salt, water, and fat.
Okay. Bruce wants to know facetiously if potato chips are keto. No, Bruce, I'm sorry. I'm going to have to get your wife to whip you into shape. Being taught to live on a low-calorie, low-carb diet. I think Kim is about to lose it on this one, so go for it.
Well, I'm going to say, who said your diet has to be low-calorie? Don't worry about calories. Calories take care of themselves on a ketogenic diet. A calorie is not a calorie. They are different depending on what they do. Food is biological data that your body takes in and decides what to do with based on what it is, not how many calories it is. So if you're intentionally limiting calories, you're doing it wrong. If you are accidentally limiting calories, if you're just not that hungry, then you're doing it right. But if you're keeping your calories low intentionally, you have some work to do about how you understand how your body works.
Okay. Craig asks, how about sugar and cheese? I like brie and Havarti and cheddar. I've avoided them because I thought they had lactose or other sugar in them.
There's a little bit of sugar, obviously, because there's lactose, and a soft cheese is going to have more lactose than a hard cheese. I wouldn't worry about it. In cheese, it's fine. Just make sure it doesn't have any added sugar, like some cream cheeses might. But Havarti, brie, um, fine, totally fine. Watch the protein because they are a high fat food, but they are also a protein containing food, and some people get surprised when they eat a lot of cheese or their protein gets kicked up.
Okay. Now I'm going to say something that every single person on this program knows, but wishes were not true. And this is about what we call in keto swooshes and stalls. You lose 10 pounds, 7 pounds the first week, and everybody starts to calculate. Okay, I lost 7 pounds the first week. If I keep losing 7 pounds a week, okay, but I probably won't lose 7 pounds because you lose a lot the first week. So let's say I lose 5 pounds a week. That means that if I'm on this way of life for the next 5 years, I will weigh less than 0. And you start making these calculations about what you're going to do. And then you discover that geometric equations and straight lines and that was great for geometry when you were in 9th, 10th, or 11th grade, but it doesn't have anything to do with the way your body functions. There are going to be times when you are on keto when you're going to lose weight quickly and easily. And then there are going to be those times when you are on a plateau or a stall. So we call those swooshes when all of a sudden you drop a bunch of weight, and stalls when you don't. So we're going to talk about them right now. And the first thing is that I'm going to tell you is that the scale is a liar. And everybody knows that when you get on the scale, you could get on the scale at 7 o'clock in the morning, and it says one thing. And you can get on at 9 o'clock and the same morning, and your scale is going to say something different. Did you gain 2 pounds? 2 pounds is 7,000 calories. 3,500 calories are in a pound. I absolutely guarantee you that there isn't a single person here who in 2 hours could consume 7,000 calories worth of food. What's happening is that your scale is reflecting things like water in your body and other things. It is not a valid indicator of what's really going on inside. While you are stuck and your weight is not going down and you are frustrated and you are like Job, getting ready to curse God for not losing weight, what you don't realize is that your body is reshaping itself inside. And what you may not notice is that your clothes are looking more loose on you. It has been while I was on a stall that I got the most attention about the way I looked. People coming up to me and just who hadn't seen me in a while going, "You look terrific." And they noticed it because I was going down sizes while I was on a stall. So I want you to know the first thing is that the scale is a liar. Measure yourself. Take pictures of yourself. Watch what's happening to your clothing. Those are much more valid indications of what keto is doing to you than the scale. But the scale will come. The scale will come. Now, the problem is when you're in a stall and you've been in a sustained stall, why are you there? So that's the time where you need to pay attention to what you're eating and check things out. You may be eating something, as I did yesterday, and consume a lot of carbs, having absolutely innocently thinking that you were doing the right thing. For example, I started a post in the group today about what was the single most food that you were surprised at number of carbs they had. And for me, it was broccoli. Broccoli was the ultimate weight loss food. I remember my trainer saying, you know what? Broccoli is so good for you and so low calorie. You should have broccoli. I'm not joking. You should have broccoli and grilled chicken 5 times a day. She wanted me to have half a chicken breast and broccoli 5 times a day. She said,
Holy moly.
I'm not making this up. She said, eating the same thing will train your body not to have cravings. Now, you know how many days you can eat broccoli and grilled chicken 5 times a day?
Without any fat on it?
Without any fat on it. I think I went about 2 days before I said, this is like gross. And was unable, that was an unsustainable thing. But I was surprised to find out that broccoli was, had carbs. You can have some broccoli, as Kim said today, but you can't have all the broccoli, even if you want to. But I was shocked to find out that that kale was relatively high in carbs. I mean, I was shocked to my core because, like, kale is like one of those things that like nobody eats unless they're on a diet. It's like nobody woke up in the middle of the night and said, damn it, I want some kale. Okay, I'm having cravings for kale. Okay, it's never happened in human history. Nobody has ever said, give me kale or give me death. It just hasn't happened. But the bottom line is, it is relatively hard in whatever. And I thought I was being good by having a kale salad with avocado. And little did I know that I was ingesting a big salad, a massive dose of carbs. So you have to, if you're in a stall, you want to pay attention. Some of the biggest things that affect your body in a stall is alcohol. Kim, why is alcohol, even if it's zero carb, why could it be a problem for ketosis?
In general, your body needs to burn off any alcohol before it will burn anything else off. It's sort of like turns your body from the on to off switch in terms of fat burning. And for some of us, when we get out of the fat burning mode, it can take like a week to get back in. So there are generally considered quote unquote safe alcohols that you can use on a ketogenic diet, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you will remain in a fat burning, weight losing state. And it does vary from person to person.
Okay, we have a good question from Lisa. Wants to know, she takes 2 diuretics daily, and she takes Lasix and spirolactone with a potassium supplement. Since you lose water eating keto, should she take extra precautions and electrolytes?
You might find that you are naturally diureticing enough that you might not need that diuretic. And I would definitely, though, work with your doctor to make sure that you're balancing your electrolytes properly if you're on those diuretics for a health issue, because you do want to work with your medical provider to make sure you're staying in a safe zone. But a lot of people end up getting off their diuretics because they are no longer retaining quite so much water. I actually did take I can never say that word, the Spiro one. I was on that for a little while and I stopped taking it. It just wasn't doing any good for me anymore.
Okay. Now, Annie wants to know tips for a vegetarian starting on keto.
Okay. So I personally am not like there are some vegan ketoers. It can be done. I am not a big fan of that, but you can totally do it as a vegetarian, because one of the very best keto foods in the world are eggs, and eggs are awesome for keto and vegetarians. You can do cheeses. So there are plenty of high fat protein sources as a vegetarian you can use. Those are my main tips, is that if you focus your meal planning around getting some fatty proteins in via cheeses and milk, I'm sorry, not milks, cheeses and eggs, and then add some vegetables, high fiber vegetables are fine with, with added fats, and then you generally have just a fine diet as a vegetarian. I do not recommend whey protein, which I can go into when we have more time. I know we've got so much content, but because it can spike your insulin, but cheese and eggs work as a vegetarian.
Okay, by the way, a little pause here. Is anybody learning anything tonight? If you're learning something, type in yes or heck yes or yawn. This is fantastic. I am. I'm learning. Yes, yes. You betcha. Yes, sure. Yes, heck yes. Learning lots. Okay. Yes, thank you. Yes, lots. Yes. Heck yes. All good. Yes. Okay, we have a question here from Linda. Linda wants to know about water intake, water and fluid intake.
So there are a couple of schools of thought about water. I tend to go with drink slightly more water than you're thirsty for, but don't drown yourself. Um, a rule of thumb is kind of aim for about half your body weight in ounces of water. And then make sure though that you are hydrating, not anti-hydrating. So what I mean by that is if you drink way too much water, you can develop something called hyponatremia, which is essentially a form of water poisoning. You're drinking so much water that you're flushing out all your electrolytes and you don't feel good. So if you're noticing that you're super lightheaded, you're kind of dizzy and disoriented, or you just can't seem to drink enough water, like you're drinking and drinking and drinking and you're just thirsty, 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 your problem is actually that you need salt. So you really need to balance the water and the salt.
Okay. So we have a question, which was a really good question. Is okay. What alcohol can you drink on keto, even though you may not stay in keto? So first of all, when it comes um, to alcohol, Scotch, single malts, bourbons, vodka, rum, even tequila, these are all zero carb. The problem is that the alcohols may knock you out of ketosis. Most, virtually all mixed drinks have a huge percent of sugar in them. And by the way, when I said vodka and rum, I'm only talking about straight. I'm not talking about flavored. All of the flavored vodkas and rums, whatever, contain a heck of a lot of sugar and will definitely interfere with any plans you had to be in ketosis. If you go out of ketosis, what do? Well, the fastest way to get back into it is to stop doing what took you out of it, and then start counting carbs and not net carbs. And I thought I had a glass of wine. I thought I was having a keto friendly wine. I was wrong. It took me a week to get back into keto. And believe me, Kim knows I was not happy for that week.
No, he was not.
But there's nothing that you can do about it. So you pay attention to what you have. Okay. So let's go on. We've got so much stuff to do. So dry wines, Dry wines would Pinot Noir is the lowest sugar wine. Cabernet Sauvignon, Merlot. Those are all the best wines for keto. Um, any of the sweet wines are just going, the Rieslings, the Zinfandels, those are all going to knock you right out of keto. So you want to have it in moderation. The Pinot Noir, I believe, if my memory serves me correct, it's around 3.5 carbs for a 5 ounce glass. So you can have wine, but remember when you have alcohol, it may kick you out of keto. You'll have to see how your body responds. Okay. Kim,
Yes.
I'm going to run through the myths about ketosis. Here we see an angry doctor. Let's talk about dealing with doctors and ketosis.
Sure. I mean, I really respect the medical profession. I respect doctors. I think we should work with our doctors, but I also think we should be aware that our doctors have almost to no training about nutrition. They are fed the same lies that the general public is fed all the time. So instead of looking like, I'm not like defy your doctor, but I am about educating your doctor, because you've got to assume that your doctor, in fact, doesn't really know anything about nutrition actually. And so my approach with doctors is I have them explain to me their concerns if they have concerns about something like keto. And then I go and I do some research and I come back and I say, actually, blah, 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 blah. And usually if they're a reasonable doctor, they'll be like, wow, that's interesting. Do you have some resources for me? This is actually a great way to know if you need a different doctor, because if your doctor won't let go of their dogma when you provide them with really good evidence, then perhaps you need a better doctor. But I'm not advocating, lying to or defying your doctor so much as being cooperative with them and educating them and knowing that they're good at medicine, not nutrition.
Okay. Next, your family thinks that you're killing yourself by going on keto. What do you say?
Well, first you have to do a little education of yourself so that you can stand up to the scrutiny. But your family has been brainwashed by, as Harlan talked about earlier, apparently the sugar industry has brainwashed your family to believe that fat is going to kill them. They are simply operating under some incorrect assumptions about how bodies work. And rather than getting triggered by your family's disapproval of you, you should also educate them. If you can't educate them, simply avoid the topic.
Okay. Calories don't count on keto.
Okay, so here is something that I want to mention. I have a good friend in the UK named Sam Felton, and he did an experiment where he ate 5,000 calories a day of the SAD diet. Now, I will say Sam is a personal trainer and lean. He's not already a heavy guy. He ate 5,000 calories a day of normal SAD diet foods, fast food, processed food, regular food, just potatoes, the normal diet. He gained 15 pounds in 21 days. He then went for 21 days eating 5,000 calories of a ketogenic diet. He did gain a pound or two, but he lost about 2 inches around his waist. So, and he had returned to his normal weight between each of these experiments, by the way. So, how is that telling us? What is that telling us? That's telling us that a calorie is not a calorie, that calories don't matter so much as we think they are. In fact, it's the sugar industry trying to get away with the fact that sugar completely dysregulates your metabolic system by teaching us that a calorie is a calorie. So have some sugar because it's just the same as a vegetable. It's not actually true. Calories on some level, it's not like a calorie is a myth. It's not like a calorie doesn't exist, but it's not the main unit of information in nutrition. It's way down the list below a lot of other things.
That's so important. I'm gonna ask you to say that again. Is
Okay.
a calorie of um, is a calorie of sugar the same as a calorie of butter?
No. So we haven't gone very deeply into a really important concept that's kind of at the heart of all of this, and it's about insulin. So it's insulin is a huge topic, but basically insulin in your body is how your body deals with sugar. Because having really high blood sugar, if you ingest a lot of sugar, you end up with really high blood sugar. It's deadly. So your body has to have an emergency system to shuttle that sugar somewhere so you don't die. Um, and so that system is insulin. And insulin is what is called a fat storage hormone. So if you're constantly taking in a lot of sugar, and then other things with it, like sugar and fat together, or just a lot of sugar, what it does is it turns on your, we must store this. It like opens up all the closets in your body and shoves all the sugar and fat and everything into those closets, and you get bulky, you get fat. If you take in fat, your body has processes to digest that fat that don't involve a ton of insulin, actually almost none, if it's pure fat, some with protein. And so your body is not in fat storage mode when you eat that. So there's a different effect based on the type of food that you're putting in your body that determines how much weight you do or don't gain.
Wow, that's pretty comprehensive. Okay, let's continue the myths. Ketosis harms your body.
Ketosis it's something that evolutionarily was developed to have us survive. It's a survival mechanism because in a time of not a lot of food or not a lot of carbohydrates, which were not readily available in the hunter-gatherer days, you were happily surviving. There's evidence that your heart operates more efficiently and healthier running on ketones. In fact, several doctors that I know have said if I had a heart attack, I would want to make sure my ketones were as high as possible because it's a very heart healthy thing to do. And your brain loves ketones. It's a super healthy way to fuel your brain. So, I mean, it's just not true that ketosis harms your body. There is some confusion because there's a term that shares a root word called diabetic ketoacidosis. And most doctors, when you say ketosis, they are confused and think you mean diabetic ketoacidosis. But confusing those two things is like confusing drinking a glass of water with drowning. They both involve water, but one is very different than the other.
And, and they both have the word keto in it, so that does it.
Exactly. And they're both involved, ketones are involved in the process, but how they happen and what happens within them are so very different. They're not the same thing. It's not the risk. It's just an unfortunate misunderstanding.
Okay. Now we're going to get into something that is bound to be really unpopular and make some people scream. Keto drinks and products that promise to put you instantly in ketosis. True, false, expensive as heck. Should people be buying them?
My opinion is there are a few very specific uses for keto products. And this is the good, the better quality ones. There are some crappy ones as well. If you have a traumatic brain injury, you have a neurological disease, or you have cancer. If any of those conditions are true, there are likely benefits to taking an exogenous ketone product. However, if you're looking to take an exogenous ketone product for fat loss, I don't believe in it. I don't think it works. One of the things it does is it artificially raises your ketone level. So when you test for ketone level, it's showing you an artificially elevated level. Now, why having ketones is a good idea for the most part is in terms of fat loss. obviously, like I said before, your brain loves ketones. There are neurological reasons you might want more ketones. But if you're using that ketone level as a notification of how deeply are you in a fat loss zone, you've now essentially put on fake tanner and pretended you have a tan. You've ingested the ketones rather than producing the ketones. And that means you might actually not be in a state of truly nutritional ketosis while you're ingesting these things and pretending that you are.
Okay, so if people try to sell you some really expensive products, it's really, really unlikely that you are going to need them. It's really unlikely. The truth of the matter is, if you drink Bulletproof in the morning with the MCT oil, that is the main ingredient in these keto products, is the MCT oil. So why spend hundreds and literally hundreds of dollars for it if it's not necessary? So our opinion is that it's probably not necessary for you. Okay, so let's go a little bit further. We've got more to cover. Okay, where do you get MCT oil? You can get it on Amazon. You can get it from Bulletproof Executive. Okay. Let's go a little bit further, and there are questions coming in about that. I'd rather do that in the group because we have so much to cover, and it's already 90 minutes and whatever. We still have more to do. So next thing is testing. Are you in ketosis or not? The number one thing that people do to test if they are in ketosis, I see people posting, is that they buy the strips, the keto strips. You buy them on Amazon. You get them in your drugstore. People are telling me now Julian Bakery is selling them. They're also selling a product that puts you into keto. The truth of the matter is, and the way these strips are used is, obviously you pee on the strip, and if you are in ketosis, the strip will change color. The problem is that that it's really only testing for one type of ketone, and the keto strips are notoriously inaccurate. You may be in ketosis, and the strips report to you that you're not in ketosis. You may not be in ketosis, and the strips report to you that they are. So if you like driving with your eyes closed as a way of getting around in your car, you'll do fine with keto strips. They're just fairly inaccurate. Anything you want to say on keto strips, Kim, before I go on to the other two?
No, I get questions all the time where people are like, I know they're not accurate, but what does this mean? And I'm just going to say, you cannot make any meaning out of something inaccurate. I think they're just, don't even bother peeing on them. Just don't buy them.
Okay. Pee on the people selling them, but not, but don't.
Unless it floats your boat to pee on things. I don't know, but it's not helping you to really dial in your keto all that well.
Okay. Now, the next thing is a keto blood thing. On the website, I talk about it. The one that is generally recommended is called the Precision Extra. This is this lets you check to see. The thing is actually very tiny. It's normally used by diabetics, and it's also unfortunately used to see if diabetics are in ketoacidosis. You prick your finger, get some nice blood on it. You then stick the blood soaked keto strip in the machine. This is not the same kind of strip that you pee on, by the way. And you stick it in the machine, and it comes back a couple of seconds later, and it tells you whether you are in ketosis. This is a very accurate way of doing it. And if you are sadistic enough to keep sticking your finger multiple times a day, you can track when you are in ketosis. Of course, we are not responsible for the fact that your fingers will look like a pin cushion. Frankly, I couldn't do it. I have one. Sticking myself the first time with it was
Unpleasant?
was wonderful. And the bottom line is that the strips, the ketone, they're called Precision Extra Ketone strips, are extremely expensive. They are extremely expensive because the companies don't know or don't care that people are using them to test for the keto diet, and they think that it's only for emergency use for diabetics who might go into ketoacidosis. So even though the actual blood detection equipment is fairly cheap, it's like $20, the strips will cost you an arm and a leg. So if you like sticking yourself, hey, go for it. Now there's one more thing, way of using it, and that's what Kim and I both use, and it is called a keto breath analyzer. It is made by a company called Ketonics, and from what I hear, there are other companies that are on the way. Ketonics.
Yeah, they're just not to market yet.
Have you heard if any of others come to market yet?
No, I've heard of a few that are in development, but Ketonics is the only brand that I would trust.
Okay. And what you do is you hook it up with it comes with a battery, you charge a battery. You can carry it around with you, but if you have it, as I do, connected to your computer, you set it up, you install the software, and you blow into your Ketonics. On the screen, it will be measuring your ketones, and it will let you know when the blue starts to move, and then the more it moves, the higher the number of ketones that there are. And when the blue turns to green, you are pretty well in ketosis, and you watch the numbers jump. Now, the interesting thing is that that the level of ketones in your bloodstream vary throughout the day. Some people measure highest when they wake up in the morning because their body has been fasting all night, and they measure highest. I measure my lowest in the morning. Some people measure really low at night because they've had dinner, and so their ketone production is low because of dinner. Well, I didn't have dinner. I know that my ketone production right now is really high. Around 6 p.m., I tested myself, and my ketones were really high. So the Ketonics, I'll type it in to the chat. It is not the cheapest solution. However, if you consider the price of, yes, the keto urine strips are the cheapest, and there are people who recommend cutting the strips in half so that they go even further, but they're also the least accurate. Then you have the machine, which is inexpensive, but the strips, which are for the blood work, which are extremely expensive. And then you have the Ketonics, which starts out more expensive, but basically you should get years and years of use out of it. And it is really interesting to track yourself and see when you are in ketosis and when you are not in ketosis. which encourages you like to take another look at MyFitnessPal and see what's going on. Okay, we've got more to cover, more stuff. Let's see. Charlie, strips are total BS. I tried them and they're inaccurate. Strips are good for one thing: profitosis. Okay. I don't think we're going to cover that tonight, Craig. We've got too much. What's the name of the breast analyzer? You should see it in the chat box. It's called the Ketonics, and I'll post it, or one of us will post it in the group tonight. Okay. A lot of people get this question. Kim, you're traveling. What do you do about eating when you're traveling?
You know, it is super simple to eat this way when you're traveling, honestly, but you do have to exercise a bit of self confidence and ask some questions. But quite like there are some super easy go-to foods. Omelets, very simple. Now, I will warn you, some people put weird things in omelets. So you need to make sure that there is simply egg in the omelet mix, not egg and pancake batter, say. But you can always get sunny side up eggs, easy over eggs with bacon. Bacon is always a good choice. Any diner, any time of day, you can have that meal. It's super easy. Things like steak, any steakhouse is super easy. You've got steak, you've got a side of vegetables with butter, boom, easy meal. A hamburger joint, like a nice, hamburger, a burger without a bun, wrapped in lettuce, a pickle, and you're set. And then every Starbucks in the United States, at least, has heavy cream behind the counter as well as butter. So if you want to stop in at Starbucks when you're traveling, get an iced coffee. That's my favorite. I like the ice. And ask them to put heavy whipping cream in it, and they will. And it's not whipped cream. Their whipped ED cream has sugar that they add, but the whipping cream they keep in the fridge is just pure heavy cream. So it's just simple things. If I'm traveling and I'm going to be on a plane and I don't know that I'm going to have access to good foods for me, I'll bring a couple cheese sticks and some almonds, or some peely nuts are my favorite. And I'm good. I'm good all day if I have that with me. You may not have perfect macros on your travel days, but you can really have them pretty darn good.
Okay. Now, just a quick story is that I was in LA recently, and I found that when I went in to stores and asked for butter for my coffee, or guacamole, nobody had a problem in giving it to me. Side dishes of guac were easy to come by. Butter for the coffee, very, very easy. But I went into a restaurant and I ordered. They said the specialty of the house was ribs.
Oh.
It never occurred to me that the ribs were going to be drowning in sauce, because that's not the way I make my ribs. Right. And they bring this thing out, and it is absolutely covered in a sugar sauce. Now, I should have said no, but I'm the kind of person who just will take it anyway. And I started pushing the sauce off and scraping it off, and I took a bite out of it, and it was so sweet and so disgusting to me that that I basically just pushed it aside and ate my veggies, and that was it. So the bottom line is, lesson to me was stick up for what I said. I should have just said, oh, I can't have the sauce, and right. They would take care of it. But
right. And you can very easily, and that's what I said, you have to kind of stand up for yourself a little bit when you're ordering something. Even if you assume, why would they do something crazy with that food item? You ask. I always ask, hey, I'd like the steak, no sauce. I don't know if there's any sauce on it, but I don't want any sauce. Just seasoning and butter, just salt and pepper and butter, please. Or, And I just clarify that with my server when I order, and I don't then have to order 2 dinners.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, what I'm going to tell you now is something that you may not want to hear, but I'm going to tell you anyway. And I have my opinion on it. Kim has her opinion on it. We haven't even discussed this, but it's the following: that ketosis isn't really a diet, but it's a way of life. If you want to lose 10 pounds or 20 pounds and you're going to do ketosis, and then you lose your 20 pounds and you say, okay, I'm going to go back to the standard American diet. I'm going to load up on carbs. Bruce is going to have his potato chips. You're going to do all of the things that you got away from. All of those pounds are going to jump right back on. Your body is going to go, yay! I can burn, and start storing glucose again. And you will see just how quickly they come back. What you need to do is make a resolution and say, I want to enjoy being at my optimal weight. I want to enjoy being at my optimal health, and I'm going to stay this way forever. If you do, ketosis will be the most rewarding journey that you go on. But if you are going to, but if you're going to go on it fully intending to go off it, it's probably not going to be of help. Like I stepped in someone today who was talking about that she can't have bananas, and she was complaining, but she said, but that's going to be my cheat day. Yeah, your cheat day with a banana has so many carbs in it that it's probably going to throw you out of ketosis for 2 weeks, possibly even longer, because it's just going to confuse your system. There's no such thing as it's okay to cheat. One person said, hey, just 1 day a week have carbs. It's not going to work. You get into this, you live it as a way of life, and you will have the rewards of health and lower cholesterol and more fitness and more energy for the rest of your life. But if you go back and forth, you're going to wreak havoc with your body. This is not a diet in a short-term sense of a diet. However, this is a diet in a long-term, change your life and keep the change forever. Kim, do you want to say anything about that?
I just want to say that I totally agree with you, that you summed it up really well. And if you haven't started keto yet and you're new, like, don't freak yourself out. Sometimes people get a little overwhelmed thinking, oh my God, if I start this, I'm going to have to do it forever and I will never have potato chips again. And oh my God, you will actually stop wanting them. I promise that it goes away. So all you have to do is imagine that you want to be healthy for the rest of your life, and put one foot in front of the other and go deeply committed into keto, and know that that means no cheat days, and know that that means you're going to have a whole life adjustment for a while. But within a few weeks to a few months, like for me, the thought of cheating is just, it's like, well, why don't I just get a hammer and smash myself in the head for a while? It's that appealing.
Um, you know, I feel entirely the same way. Like, why would I do it? Kim has looked over at my food plan from time to time. She has not seen a cheat. I've never been someplace, and the dessert has never. I was in one of my favorite restaurants the other day, and they were having this my friends were having this delicious, all natural, gluten free cheesecake with ice cream. And the waiter looked at me and said, "Are you interested?" And I said, "No, thank you." And I didn't even resent it. I have no interest in it. I have no interest in going back to the way where I was before when you saw what I looked like, and I look a heck of a lot better, and I'm still on my journey, enjoying that the pants are getting looser. I seem to be on a belt buying spree. I had bought 2 belts last month, and
Yeah.
they are now on their tightest thing, and I'm going to have to buy new belts in the coming months. If I walk around in my pants without a belt, it is going to be quite exciting for people watching down the street
Harlan,
because
I had no idea you were such an exhibitionist.
they just will not stay up.
Yeah, I know I have several health problems that make it's sort of like you said at the beginning that make they were said you probably would have an impossible time losing weight. I have several health problems that they say that I've had since I was a teenager that make losing weight almost impossible. And I have lost a significant amount of weight on keto. And as I had said earlier, if I didn't lose a pound, I would still be happy because the way I feel is so amazing. And there's just the idea of cheating. And the other part is I love making keto sweets. There are plenty of indulgences that fit in keto. You just have to know how to make them or find people that do. And so you aren't missing out on anything.
Okay. We've got some questions here. Mike says no more fried foods on keto, right? And I can tell you no. I have to tell you, I took some chicken cutlets and I dipped them in egg and I dipped them lightly in almond flour and I fried them. And not only did I think that they were delicious, um, but my family doesn't even know that they're eating keto. So fried foods, definitely not a problem.
I
Uh,
made some delicious zucchini fritters that I fried the other day. So yeah, totally. You can fry foods.
okay. Um, One of the things that people have done and asked us is that they're making mistakes and they've asked us for support. And the group is great for support. But there are a number of people like us, like Kim and like who have been struggling for their most of our lives. And we want to do keto correctly. And because we want to do keto correctly, we're looking for a little bit more support and perhaps more structure than what the group offers. Someone private messaged me and said, who I know, said, "Hey, Harlan, I am really hoping that you will put together a group where we can work with you and Kim and focus eh, on our personal success. I'm sick and tired of being overweight. I'm sick and tired of having people look at me that way. I'm sick and tired of feeling overweight, of not having energy. I want what I see you guys are already doing." Now, the group is there for you, it's true. But if you want to move and get a lot more attention, we are trying something and we're going to do this one time. We can't guarantee that we're going to do it again. I spoke to Kim and she said yes. So we want to put together a small group. In this small group, we are going to lavish attention on you. We're going to work together for 8 weeks. In the 8 weeks that we work together, we're going to go over in detail We're going to hold you accountable. And whether you are a beginner or an intermediate person, someone who is experiencing frequent stalls and not losing as quickly as you can, we're going to get to the bottom of it, and we're going to help you achieve success, whatever success means for you. But I've been seeing people post, like, I've been doing keto for 4 months and I've only lost 5 pounds. It tells me that perhaps you need a little extra attention. If this applies to you, then you might be interested in taking a look at the group that we are putting together. I've put a link in the chat box, and the link will take you to completelyketo.com/coaching. We are going to limit this group to 20 people. We're going to do it to 20 people, and we're going to do that. That's a maximum number, and we're going to see what kind of results. If we are happy with the results, if the people in the group are happy with the results, then we'll do it again. If this is something that you would like to consider, go to it, but remember that we're going to be shutting this down at the number of 20 people. If you are so motivated that you know that you want to do it now, then the people who join tonight, who are on the webinar, are going to get a free one-on-one session with Kim, and that's worth hundreds of dollars. So go ahead, go over to completelyketo.com/coaching and get in on that tonight. Now, I want to ask you a question. For those of you who are thinking, maybe I should do this, maybe I shouldn't do this, I want to ask you a question. And the question is, how often do you think about your weight? If you think about your weight every day, if you look in the mirror and you're not happy with what you see, and you want to do something about it, then I suggest you take advantage of this. What you may not know is that I got my start in business running a weight loss studio, and I helped thousands of women take weight off, and men take weight off and keep it off. But we didn't have keto then. We didn't know about it then. It was only being developed. Now that we do, man, I wish I had keto back then, because the weight would have come off faster, the clients would have been happier, and everyone could experience that success. So if you want to be one of the 20, go over to completelyketo.com, and you will end up, if you hit return to merchant at the end, it will take you to the special keto group that we have put together for the first 20. When 20 are in the group, that comes down. Remember, we crossed 2,000 in the keto group today, and so we expect that those 20 places will go within the next couple of days. You need to talk about it with someone. Just ask them before you talk to them. Ask yourself, how much time do they spend thinking about your weight? And you make the decision. This is your health. This is your future. With that, Kim, I want to thank you for being with me. For all of you who stuck with us on this extremely long webinar, we hope you learned something. We'll post the replay tomorrow, so you can go over it. And if you have the slightest inclination, grab one of those places. We're at completelyketo.com/coaching. You can click the link in the chat box and it will take you there. We look forward to working with all of you. We look forward to working with our coaching students. Thanks so much for joining us. Have a great night. Goodbye,
Night.
everybody.